Well, hello, hello. How are you?
Ah, well enough this fine evening. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hold on.
Ah, well enough this.
Still working out the bugs. So this is Tunnel Talk 7. We've done this is our seventh edition or series or talk, and we've been talking about all kinds of things. Um, we're going to start off. We're going to hit it heavy. We're going to hit some heavy topics tonight. We're going to be talking about a little bit more of some of your experience as a research specimen 18 for the government, and you're going to be sharing some of those experiences and growing up and things. And then we're going to jump into like things like bloody noses, alien abductions, bloody noses, ringing in the ears. We're going to go ahead and talk about that black goo. And then we're going to jump into things like skinwalkers, shamans, witches, and your werewolf DNA and what it's like when you actually do transform and how painful that is and stuff for you. So let's get started. What are some of the things that you haven't told us about before with your experiences being a lab rat?
Well, there's a lot actually. I've been getting more and more flashbacks recently of stuff they didn't want me to. I'm having memories of some of the training simulation they put me through as punishment, and those are really kind of scary. Being deep inside of a computer program that feels as real as flesh or blood, taste, see, feel everything. And every time you do something wrong, they reset it and give you a major pain response over and over again until it's programmed into you. And that there's no second thought of doing exactly what you're told. It was at least one of the barbaric systems they put me through. Because I always used to get in trouble. I was the one walking the base when I wasn't supposed to, slipping away, disobeying orders. I'm surprised they kept me alive, to be honest.
So, don't you have a memory of possibly being? Can you tell us locations?
I can get generalized, but I'm not exactly sure where everything is. It's really hard to tell location, especially in those tunnels, because you go a mile down the tunnel and you're literally on another planet and you were just in the same tunnel the whole time. You haven't gone anywhere else. So it can be kind of difficult. They have a full array of programs running there. They've got programs trying to deal with experimental food sources. They got programs trying to honestly mess with the nature of the soul itself. Like some of the things I've seen are particular ETs that I forget what they're called, but they're the ones that look just like the Grace, but they're taller. Sitting there with these weird vats of honestly what's human flesh and what it used to be that's still sentient and feeling as it's going around in a tube as they're trying to keep it alive and study the emotional responses of the mesh amalgamation of what they're making in those drums. It's one of the things I remember seeing before I ran from it. One of my earliest experiences. Same time I lost my handler. Um, Running from a reptilian being that got loose in there. They wanted to see how well I would do against it in the hopes that they would get rid of me. I ended up escaping in the ventilation systems.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your handler and the reptilian? Because we've talked about that scenario before and how you escaped. But tell us about your handler. This is new to me. And the reptilian, what they tried to pair you up with a reptilian. They tried to make you fight, or what was that about?
Well, they wanted to get rid of me. They had a very hungry reptiloid down in the tunnels, and they thought, let's kill two birds with one stone. Either he gets rid of the reptiloid or the reptiloid gets rid of him. Either way, we win. My handler was a young man. Don't even remember his name. I just remember his weird kind of salt and pepper, almost brownish blonde hair. He was kind of a skinny man. He couldn't stand his job, and he barely talked to me. The
How
last word
long was he
he
your
said to me
handler?
was "run." Um, 6 or 7 months. 6 or 7 months, and most of that was just, okay, you need to go from this room to this room, or this area to this area, or you go do this. And it was his job to make sure I was motivated and moved and got where I was scheduled to be.
Now, have you had more than one handler that you can remember?
hmm Three main ones: him, the angry Russian woman, and the one that wasn't human. They almost looked like a puppet in a giant meat suit. I don't know exactly what it was, but that's the thing that watched me the longest.
Did your handler go out into the community with you, or go back home, or?
No, they'd maybe show up at certain school functions every once in a while as kind of giving a stern reminder, but they'd like to keep everything as quiet as possible, least amount of contact in the normal world. In fact, if I even said hi to somebody that I wasn't supposed to know who they were, they'd get angry with me.
Did you
But
ever have military showing up, or black helicopters, or anything like that?
off and on, they've had to watch me. I mean, since the computer systems don't work, there's been people that they've paid to watch me in person for years. Um, I've called them out on numerous occasions and got a few fired just from, you're the same person that's been watching me for 3 years now. Hi, guys. I know you.
Do you ever see them following you, or?
Not for a while. I think they've gotten better and found a better way to track me, but it used to be for until like I'd say 5 years ago, there was always somebody right nearby me, watching me, pretending to be a friend, helping out with whatever resource to keep me alive at the time, no matter what situation I was in. I mean, they did do a good job of keeping me alive, but that's about it.
Oh, okay. So what's the job of a handler?
Um, okay, then you got to make sure that whatever subject you have gets where they need to go. It's kind of like a secretary, but of an individual. It's your job to take care of any information regarding with them, pass it off to the proper people, and go to the right channels. He did a lot of talking. I still don't remember what the Russian woman said all the time.
That's
Most of
really
the time, she
interesting.
screamed at me.
What?
Most of the time, the Russian woman just screamed at me. My second handler.
So when were you most active? What ages?
Um, well, I did my first main mission when I was around 5. I'd pretty much say from the ages of 9 to 14 is when they had me the most active.
And by most active, what do you mean?
That's when they did the most testing and poke and prod and did most operations.
Okay. Did you have a normal life between those ages?
Yeah, as normal as you can for growing up in Vegas. Yeah.
So you were born in Las Vegas, right?
Yes, I was.
So you kind of remember some of the over there by the Air Force Base. There's some buildings, like rows and rows of buildings.
You mean the factories out there and the
Ye-
district right before you get to the base?
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the testing bases right there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
that's where they do the special seasoning, quote unquote. They'll grind up refugees, and they do that there.
What do you mean refugees?
Any ET species that lands on this planet that didn't have the appropriate clearance, your technology is taken from you and you are killed.
Wow. Can you tell us more about that kind of stuff?
Powder that's put into certain food sources that we have for poorer people, and then they watch what happens as our genetics change slowly over time. It's all an experiment.
Well, let's get into the alien topic. And you said that any kind of species that doesn't have clearance, that just comes in here, they get taken down, right? And
Shot out of the sky trying to leave or enter the atmosphere. They don't want anybody coming through. Complete radio silence.
I have a question for you. So are we winning the war on aliens? Is there a war on aliens? Is there a galaxy space force? And are we pretty powerful? Like are aliens a threat to us? You know, you say that they come and go and we shoot them down or we capture them. How badass are we as a space force out there?
Honestly, we kind of aren't, but we're a small piece of a bigger galactic empire. We kind of sold our souls to the Federation, in a sense, if you want to take it into point, and they have been trying to do good, while at the same time we've been also backdoor making deals with some of these darker entities in order to get tech and give away a certain percentage of our population in order to do so. And those two species are at war with each other. Those two main factions are at war.
Which two?
Both sides.
When you say darker, and which two are at war with each other?
The Galactic Federation, pretty much. That's not their official name, but that's pretty much. And then there's this darker conglomerate that's mostly controlled by the Dracos and certain other species that are going for complete and utter galactic conquest.
And what do you mean by darker? The darker ones?
They believe in more negative energies. That's just how they function. Good is not a normal thing. To do bad is to do good for them in certain aspects. They're more violent and strategic. And
well, what are the names of those ones? And which aliens have you come in contact with? I mean, give us a rundown of that.
Okay, species I personally ran into 3 different types of reptiloids. Because I have dealt with some natives. I've dealt with numerous grays before. I've dealt with a couple other different types of humanoids, including Altarians. I've dealt with a couple 5th dimensional beings. Your mic's off. And then just a bunch of like mixes and betweens, because a lot of it was genetics research. I know there's a lot more species out there, but that's majorly what I've dealt with that's actually alien. I've met every native species to this planet, including the species that is, well, the best way to describe it is they're dragonfly people, and they're dying off. Very few of them left.
How big are those?
Of them, but they're an actual native species. There's also a fat pig-like tribes that live underground. They have like a small trunk for a nose, but other than that, they look like a fat human. I've met a tribe of them as well.
Are those just altered humans or DNA? That's an actual species that came from where? Where would that?
They're native to Earth. They were underground. They're more related to like say moles, but they look very humanoidish. But they have trunks. It's kind of weird. I mean, it take a lot to get into them. for them, they consider their chief to be whoever is the largest and wisest.
Okay, what about Palladians and the Syrians? Are those off-world species or?
Pleiades, the Pleiadians, the Alarics, the Kamai, and the Brokas. They're all different species. They're very similar. They're all humans like us. As I said, just slight difference of appearance and certain psychic abilities. I mean, I believe one of those species naturally has 4 eyes. But they're pretty much generalized kind of human, just slightly different origins from different parts of space.
Are they necessarily good or bad, or do they come in all?
They're just like us. They switch both sides. They're not good. They're not evil. They're majorly neutral. I mean, a lot of those species, yes, they do claim good, but turn around and do secret bad things, just like, say, the U.S. does, or some other country that is claiming power, big brother, and in secret doing some dark things on the side. I mean, it's all neutral. Just because there's a bad egg doesn't mean you blame the whole species. But for the most part, they do try to pretend to be completely and utterly good. Yes, there are those that are, but you're a naturally neutral race, so it's going to happen.
So Mark, 2 things. Number 1 is, how come more people don't see these aliens? And number 2, how are you treated down in the bases, down in the tunnels? Were you treated with respect, or were you treated with like you were just a, lower class, just punk, or how were you treated down there?
That's kind of funny. In my particular case, most of them, except for particular higher ups, didn't even know I existed. I'm just some kid that appeared in base. They go to try to do something about it, and then the higher ups say, "Oh, thank you for getting him for me." What? Everyone was confused about me. Even people that I was in direct contact with weren't supposed to know what I was or how important I was. A few times I overheard them chewing somebody out for me doing something wrong that was supposed to be in charge of me. I've heard them say that my life was worth more than everyone in that base on one of the occasions. But at the same time, they all treated me like I didn't belong. They didn't understand. Most people were just confused by what this weird little fat kid was doing there and why.
Wow. And then the part 2 is, how come more people aren't aware of these aliens and the bases and things?
Well, there's a lot of people that do know about them, and they just don't talk about them or don't deal with it because either they've dealt with it in their life or otherwise. And a lot of these humanoid species, they're so human that you couldn't really tell the difference. I mean, unless you go in and dissect one and see that maybe they have one tiny little organ that we don't, or something like that, or slightly misplaced in innards. They all look the same on the outside. So it'd be very difficult to tell for a lot of these different humanoid species.
Are we able to mate with them, or are they the fallen angels, or?
Yes and no. It depends on which ones you're talking about and where their genetics lie. It depends on if the base ancestors are potentially compatible, because there are cases of just mutated freaks killing the mothers being born that die off shortly after that are just not right with certain types of humanoids. But others, yeah, you could literally be married to one, wouldn't know it. Your children are a mix, and they don't even know it because they were just the child of a refugee on planet, and we'll never know.
What'd you say, a refugee?
Refugee on planet.
You did mention that earlier. Just go ahead and run by that again. Refugees. So those are ones that land here. Now, all aliens that land here or come here interdimensionally aren't killed off or captured, do some of them actually just coexist and are considered refugees? Or tell us a little bit about that.
They only really give the rights to do that to the ones that are more likely to blend in or deal with what's given. A lot of them try to escape, and they're normally taken down very quickly because it's a priority number one situation. Anytime an interdimensional or extraterrestrial refugee lands, step one is to take whatever craft got them here in the first place, bring it to archive, and then deal with the inhabitants. And honestly, depending on which nation catches you, depends on how well you're going to be treated as that alien refugee.
Okay, so are there refugee camps or certain bases that are set up for, different refugees, or
They
are we
really
using
don't
them
give
for?
that much rights. I mean, maybe they'll keep a select few locked away in particular little dungeons and do their research, but for the most part, they kill them off as quickly as possible, wipe all evidence clean, burn it away.
Do they have technology that we still like we do? Are we taking their technology? Are they still considered more technology advanced than us?
Yes, they are. I mean, when you have technology that's literally able to create a wormhole that you're able to control and move at a whim in order to travel through space, that's just their spaceships. That's not their weapon systems. That's not their living tech. They're literally able to create. The best way to describe it is in D&D, a pocket dimension. That's how their spaceships, a lot of them, work, by creating that wormhole and being able to have complete control of it, and they can move it throughout the universe within the realms of their parameters.
Okay, so wormholes. I mean, do they come and go, or are they set once they're created? Can we close them, or how's that work?
They do normally have to come in and be closed if one gets too old or goes hyper, meaning the energy is just keep growing and growing and growing in mass. It will create a black hole and destroy the ship and wherever is near enough by. It's one of the dangers. Their tech has to be highly regulated, and if anything goes wrong, it's a very dangerous reaction.
That's so interesting. I just can't even get over how much information you have. It's so interesting. I want to talk about MILAB's military abductions, that are people that are taken like in their sleep or whatever, and are used for, operations, military operations. And what does bloody noses mean for the people that are taken? Ringing in the ears. What does all that mean?
The ringing in the ears actually is partially to do with psychic abilities. That ringing of the ears is you're hearing what others are saying about you, and the bloody noses are normally lag from the type of time travel they use to abduct people. It can be very dangerous to the human body. They're using older world. Most of the stuff they have now wouldn't be stuff sanctioned by any of the ET governments that are actually running parts of space. It'd be considered barbaric. Just some of the damage they do. They want to go quick, clean, and whatever they're able to do to get them off to that mission and get the job done, not caring how many lives are taken out in the process, not even caring if they come back.
What kind of jobs are these MILABs being taken on?
You go build something in the middle of nowhere, slave labor, to you're a mercenary killing people, or you have some secret knowledge and intelligence that they exploit and use. And it varies. It's whatever they need for the job, and they'll try to take people to do so.
Well,
Certain
so why
species
were the bloody nose happening?
will take people just for reproduction due to the fact that they are an alternate dimension, future version of us whose genetics got so messed up they can't reproduce anymore. So they go to other dimensional versions of their past selves in order to try to get new DNA to try to help them continue as a species.
That's so crazy. And what were the bloody noses? Were those
That's side effects of things that happen. It could be a side effect of, say, they just put a marker in you, a tracker, and your body's having an allergic reaction to it. So it's going to try to come up with blood in your nose, either due to the fact that they put one directly in your head, which they will do. They love to do kill switches on places in the brain that can't be seen, non-metallic chips to where they don't show up in x-rays. It's scary.
yeah. It's so crazy, Mark, because I have a lot of experiences and memories which I haven't even begun to discuss because I'm just too interested in what you have to say. Eventually, I'm going to pull out my book of notes. I have about 5 or 6 journals where I have all my experiences in, and I just don't want to pull them out right now. But the information that you're giving me is kind of helping me to put it all into perspective. So what I wanted to talk about next is the black goo. And we've heard a lot about the black goo and some kind of an AI that seems to be, invading here and infecting people. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the black goo, from my understanding, is a synthetic life form created through AI means that's been leaking interdimensionally and feeds off of things that are good, of light, and leaves darkness in its decay as a byproduct. It'll literally feed off anything light and take all that energy in for itself. And it can be as simple as it'll seep in and the goo will start clogging up plant life and making it to where plants can no longer grow on a planet, and or it'll infect, say, a host of the universe that it's going into, and literally turning them into a type of zombie in some cases, and or allowing other more demonic beings connected with those dark energies it gives off to have a vessel to come play around in a world that they may have been a part of a long time ago, but their vessel is long since dead.
You just blew my mind. You just blew my mind. Okay, so basically, somebody once described to me that it feels like their whole being is slowly being taken over by a black substance, and they're hearing like voices in their head, and it's getting worse and worse. Could this be a form of black goo, and can possessions be a form of black goo, and how in the hell do you get rid of it?
The black goo can be used for possession of certain types of beings, but not all possessions have to do with the black goo. Anybody that's spiritually open enough and somebody that's spiritually strong enough to come in and control them, they're going to use your body like a puppet, being able to control you with their energy. The goo can be gotten rid of, but it has to be physically cleansed, spiritually cleansed, and you pray to whatever deity for good measure afterwards and hope it doesn't start recultivating. It's very hard to get rid of, and the more negativity fed into the realm it comes from, the stronger the goo gets and the more sentient it is. There's souls literally trapped within it that are just screaming and angry, full of pure hatred because of what they've experienced, and they just become part of what it is.
Where does it come from?
There was a dimension in particular that went completely lights out to all positive energy. it went to complete negative. It was a physical world like ours, and it just went completely black. And I'm guessing somebody there was doing research on primordial ooze, but trying to make a darker version of it to create a kind of like antimatter reality in a sense. And due to their research, it became somewhat sentient and started seeking itself out further and further, absorbing all of that light and positive energy that it could find. It was probably something created by somebody batshit insane, and the whole universe has to pay for it now.
Where can someone pick it up from? I mean, is it centered in Iraq or anything like that?
You have enough negative energy in a place, and you're able to open some sort of a connection to it. It'll start seeping in to wherever you are.
What do you mean seeping in? I mean, how's it going to seep in?
It literally will turn itself. It'll change its vibration and ooze in. It'll like say there was a wall and there was a connection to somebody that was just pure dark and wanted to destroy light and was able to create a portal, and that portal got closed. That's more than enough connection to where even if a single dribble of it gets through, it's going to cultivate and grow and grow and grow upon that wall, creating more negative as it passes through.
Well, I gotta say this. Okay. So, I'm pretty psychic and I have visions and I can remote view and I get information on people. And I saw that this one person was entirely consumed with it. And it almost like just grew up until it just slowly creeped up and consumed them. And then it became a face where, like those fly traps, those Venus fly traps, how it was like that. This person actually had like a fly trap face. I mean, it was completely consumed on this person. But this person was really, I guess you could say, super psychic to where I believe that AI from that black goo was helping this person to be really psychic. That AI, is that affecting a lot of people today that who might think they're psychic, or how is that affecting humanity today?
Well, it's connected to some of the psychic aspects, but psychic ability has always been natural in humans. We've slowly been losing that ability due to our own effects. I mean, the Crusades destroyed a lot of information about our actual true histories and things. But the goo isn't exactly, it can't exactly cause psychic abilities, but it can be used to channel them through another being connected with it, giving it to anyone connected with that darker energies. And it's trying to seep into our world because of our darker manifestations, legitimately. And the more and more it gets here, the more likely it is to create, consume, and then go on to the next one, using this as a catalyst to jump to the next potential physical reality, and then until it takes over everything.
Okay, so is that a major threat? Is it a major threat for us?
It's a major threat for the universe as a whole. It's like a cancer slowly eating away part of the lung. I mean, yeah, it may be small right now, and you'll never breathe the same, but if you don't get rid of it now, it'll take out everything to where you can't even survive.
How do we get rid of it?
As I said, it's got to be spiritually cleansed and physically cleansed. Whatever is touched by it, best bet is you burn it, you spiritually cleanse it, and you pray to whatever deity that it worked and it doesn't come back. And you try to stay as positive as possible, no matter what the situation you're in, to try to do opposite. Even though it feeds off that, it's that negative energy that allows it to come in to feed off of more.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty intense. Whew.
You wanted to go on to witches, and with this black goo, there are certain darker entities that have been using witchcraft that have been using this to get more followers, brainwash people, and gain more power making deals with whatever beings are connected in these other universes. It's being wildly abused by anybody that has the knowledge and power to do so.
So witches have information about the black goo, or they're using it unknowingly?
Some are using it unknowingly, but I'm pretty sure some of the stronger, higher ups, elders, know exactly what it is, and they're either terrified of it or they're using it to their own agendas.
What do you mean the higher ups?
Like any elder, somebody that has old world knowledge of magic and is able to teach others. I'm pretty sure all the elder souls that have knowledge of how these things actually have functioned are the ones that are either terrified of it, trying to figure out a solution, and or are using it to their advantage.
So, as far as witches go, are when you're talking about elders, could they? Are you talking about people that are possibly born through these witches' bloodlines, or are you talking about cult members that get in these covens and they raise up to these positions of power?
Well, I wasn't quite going on it about a cult or anything. When I view elder, it could be somebody that's an older soul that has been using abilities for lifetimes and say is reborn and has knowledge of how to do these older things. They could be considered an elder, somebody that studied their whole life and truly grasps things and is starting to understand things. They can be considered a master. It's somebody that has enough knowledge and practice in the arts, whatever art that may be, in order to teach.
Okay, so you could possibly be born with this information because of your soul at a soul level. You've practiced or you've known about these things in prior lives, and you've kind of brought it forward.
Everything's recycled. I mean, we're all just energy. So it's got to come back in some way, somehow.
What is the difference between a witch and a shaman? Do you know?
Well, witches normally are more, they can manipulate, they can do good, they can do bad, they can do neutral. It's a generalized term for, hey, you're somebody that's a practitioner of energy control, energy manipulation. A shaman is normally somebody who's doing it more for a positive or to bring about a balance of things. And they normally use medicine / spiritual type healing in order to get the individual they're trying to help to that spiritual state they need to be. They're more or less teachers, a shaman, trying to help and grow the individual that they can by taking them on their first spirit walk so they can start dealing with the universe for the first time, and or just healing them with a particular health problem or otherwise that the individual has.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That light there, when it's getting darker outside, so all of a sudden it's getting brighter and it's like blinding me, but okay, it doesn't matter. So I was listening to Manly P. Hall, and he's a great, I don't know, he got murdered, but he would talk a lot about the Masons, and he talk about symbolism and all kinds of the great works and things like that. And he shares a lot of positive information. And I was listening today, and he was talking about, what a shaman is and how they work for a tribe of people, and they try to protect and everything. And he was talking about witches and energy. It's all energy. And what's the difference between dark dark magicians and white magic and stuff like that. And he mentioned that white magic was using what energy that there is out there that they can, manipulate for the good of all. And so you have your white witches, you have your dark witches, and what have you. Basically, it's a manipulation of all the energies and things like that. He also went into a really great discussion about the astral realm, and that's what I wanted to possibly talk about in the next episode. And I just thought it was amazing how he was saying that once you start getting your psychic abilities start developing and you can start kind of seeing into the astral, where the world becomes more translucent to you and you can start seeing. He was saying that any kind of thought form or any kind of thing that exists in the world has a shape, and it takes shape in the astral realm. So there's a lot to talk about, and I want to get into that in our next show. But definitely about the manipulation of the energies, and how you were saying that shamans do more of a teaching, and they try to help others with their visions, and they live more towards nature. Nature has a lot of energy and things like that. Witches and shamans and what have you, pagans, things like that. They really love the energy from nature, and they use it for different forms and things like that. That's always been around. Now we're being so disconnected from nature anymore, and we're all technology and computerized. We're really getting away from Mother Earth, and Manly P. Hall was saying how Mother Earth is actually alive, that the earth is alive. Everything is alive.
Last of the Titans, actually. Still having a physical form, Gaia, or our physical planet, which does have sentience. It is alive. It does feel.
So there, and he was saying how the earth is completely alive, and we're living here, and everything that is happening on the outside that we see war, we need to correct our inner thought and our inner minds, and stop fighting with each other, and that'll help with the wars and things. But again, that's another topic. So we were talking about shamans and witches and things like that. I wanted to go into your DNA. Now you have werewolf DNA. And sometimes you have said that sometimes if you get angry and things like that, that sometimes that you actually transform. And you have mentioned it before. Can you just go more into that? I just think it's fascinating. And then after that, I wanted to kind of go into Skinwalkers. Now you lived in Utah, and you were very close to a reservation, and they you didn't say the word.
Not there.
The trick is you do not say that word. Just that resonance and the vibration of that word will attract them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and go ahead and talk about, number one, your werewolf DNA and your transformations, and then how does that relate to skinwalkers and things like that?
Well, honestly, for starters, there's a major difference between a skinwalker and a werewolf. A skinwalker is a spiritual being that used to be a physical being. Normally, it is a shaman or a spiritual healer that is stuck in a piece of land. And it's their job to defend that land from any potential attackers or new spiritual entities. The problem is with things like the Trail of Tears and a lot that's happened, those spirits that saw this and were supposed to be those protectors kind of got corrupted with what happened to their people, and they become very angry, and they'll just straight up kill anyone that they deem necessary to defend that, either spiritual or physically. Werewolves, on the other hand, there's a couple different types, but for the most part, they kind of all follow the same set of rules. a particular chemical is released in their brain, which causes muscle growths, and then they start genetically changing. Once that chemical is released, it's like it eats away what's left and brings you back to your original shape. It's really hard to describe. I haven't turned in a few years myself. I'm not your typical average werewolf, though. I'm more based off of emotion. You know how there's psychic vampires? I'm in a sense a psychic werewolf, but I do physically change.
Didn't you tell me that you used to have experiences as a kid where you would start doing weird things on the ground and kids would look at you, and what was happening there?
Well, I used to change a lot more when I was a kid. They'd have me do certain missions as the Beast, and a lot when I was younger. Um, I get one emotion too strongly, and there's a chance I could turn. My body will start writhing and growing and shaping, and that's just the first couple of steps. By the time there's hair, it's too late. And anywhere that turns.
What do you mean by the time there's hair?
By the time the process goes into you start growing hair, it's the
like just like the movies, it just starts actually coming out of your pores?
Yeah.
Like on your whole body, or
yeah.
And does it in your face like kind of start changing, or?
The jaw breaks, it stretches forward, the ribs break and change in position. The arms and legs stretch out, as well as ligaments, and muscle will start growing, all based off of a particular chemical in the brain.
So what's the worst that you've ever transformed? I mean, what's the farthest you went?
I've full-on transformed numerous times. As I said, I've done operations. They used to call me Silverback, and it's not because I look like a gorilla. It's because I was a silver were that used to spin on his back using his front and back claws as weapons. I ripped people's throats out spinning on my back.
Holy crap. What do you mean you rip people's throat out? Is that documented?
Like a top with my legs stretched out, full claw. Say I was being circled in because somebody was trying to grab me or a group was trying to grab me. I just start spinning and stretch it out, appropriate placement, beheaded, or huge chunk gone out of flesh.
Well, how come you're not in jail for that?
How am I not in jail for killing off bases of resistance members and slaughtering people because I was told to? How are they not in prison for having children experiments? I mean, I should be in jail, and this is all stuff that happened at base.
Oh,
the few things I've done outside of base, I mean, when I was very little, there was a pedo that lived in my neighborhood. I ended up going into his house, turning and killing him. I'm pretty sure nobody said shit about it because of just how sick the man was.
Oh, I see. So did you ever turn on base? I think you said that did you turn on base and kill like entities, or?
They'd normally have me turn before a mission and or for a training exercise. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of blood on my hands of soldiers that just were doing their jobs and doing what they were told to do. And again, it's all just a big test for them. See what happens. Poke and prod. Do as much damage as you can. See if they're useful to the cause.
How old were you? Was that between your age 9 and 14 when you were doing that, or?
Well, the whole turning thing kind of started when I was 5. That was the their go-to for me before they started putting me into other genetics. I mean, look, here's a little werechild that we own. Okay, let's use them. And then they'd be like, well, you're a bloodthirsty animal. Here, these people here, we want them all to disappear. So he just turned for the third time, and it's a painful experience, and he blacks out and turns bloodthirsty. So let's just drop him right here. He'll do the job, and by the time he calms down, we just come up, make sure he's dressed, and take him back to base and tell him he did a good job.
Now, what about the stories and the myths, like the werewolves of London, and the stories? Are those all true?
Well, fiction is based off truth. I mean, yes, there are numerous werewolves that have been there. There's numerous werewolves to this day that live in New Orleans and things. But the thing is, they've been adapting to society. At first, they were more barbaric. They didn't care. Kind of like a vampire will view a human, livestock. And the wares were the first ones of the main supernatural creatures to understand, hey, you know what? We don't have to eat human as a life source. We can go hunting deers in the woods. So those particular families or clans of wares would go into more, forested type areas and places they could hunt and kept to themselves, to where they didn't have to go off and make a new werewolf or kill somebody for a food source, because they knew themselves better and found workarounds to try to save lives, to where they could function with normal society without the world ever knowing they existed.
Wow. So they've evolved.
Just like certain old rich vampires, I'm pretty sure, own blood banks. Perfect excuse, food source, nobody has to die in the process. It's evolving and adapting to whatever current situation you're in.
So interesting. When's the last time you actually started to? Because I know that you haven't turned fully in a long time. You've been able to kind of control your emotions?
16 about was the last time I've fully turned. I've had a lot of cases, especially in emotional stress, to where I'll go to, but I'm able to change my emotion, and the most I'll get is maybe my ribs will start to crack and grow a little bit, and my jaw will stretch forward just a hair, but nothing major. I mean, it's been a very long time. I mean, I can still, in those moments, tap in some of the strength, but it's not the same as the full experience.
Amazing. And now, do werewolves have like a psychic ability? I mean, what are the abilities that they have in that way?
Honestly, werewolves aren't that psychic. They have it. They're just big humanoid animals that increase muscle mass, speed, and sense of smell and hearing. I mean, yes, there can be psychic werewolves, but they're normally psychic beforehand, not after the fact.
So interesting. I wanted to ask you.
Can be naturally psychic. They use it more or less for an allure or a control tactic. Here, I'm going to use this ability to make you think you love me. It's all just them psychic manipulating you in whatever fantasy that you wish, and trying to use that to your advantage.
So interesting. So interesting. I wanted to throw something in about the Morgans. This is completely out of the blue. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I was watching today about the Morgans, and that they're from the Irish or Celtic mythology or whatever, and they're supposedly they identify with wolves and ravens. And one of the things that it said about the Morgans are that they can shapeshift into a type of a skinwalker, a type of a wolven skinwalker or entity. Do you know anything about the Morgans? Please share with us.
The Morgans, from my understanding, are just another type of druid from a different culture. Druids have always been able to adhere themselves with nature purely. That's why they're able to take these forms of said animals or travel through tree roots or be able to talk to the forest itself. They're more attuned with nature itself. Whatever your spirit animal is, if you are able to connect to it on a deep enough level, both spiritually, mentally, and almost physically, you can take its shape. It just takes a lot of work and connection to do so.
So now, wasn't the Morgan like a goddess?
Morgan Le Fay, I believe, yes, was originally a goddess. The name comes from a family line of druids who made a name for themselves, being connected with the deity.
With the deity. Okay.
And that's one of many druid families in history. It just depends on where in the world you're talking, but the same abilities, the same basic natures that create the same beings.
Weren't they warriors as well?
Mm-hmm.
The
Not all
Morgans?
druids were specifically warriors. Then again, not all druids were specifically good. Some of the first tales you hear of druids, they would do human sacrifice and cannibalism because they viewed man itself as not what they wanted to be. So they ate the strong spiritual entity and gave it back to the earth. The earth would become stronger for it. It just depends on the views of the individuals at the time period. The abilities may be somewhat similar. It's just on how these groups use them and what they've turned into throughout different legends.
That's pretty amazing. And so the druids, were they more like a witch or like a shaman or what?
Kind of the mix of the two.
Right. I would
They were
say,
able to
yeah.
use the energy manipulation, but their energy manipulation had to be directly tied to Mother Earth itself. So they were able to use that earthly manipulation to do things that, say, certain witches couldn't do, or certain druids couldn't do, because they were more tapped in and more willing on being the negative and or positive, just depending on who you're looking at it from.
So interesting. Well, I could go on and on. We're almost up on the hour. And let's talk about what projects you got coming up and some of the ideas that you want to do.
Honestly, right now, I want to start recording just my memories of things that have happened to me in my past. And I also want to do a little bit more music. That was technically the first video on my channel, so I do kind of want to stick with that off and on. Just have a problem of not having a guitarist right now, but I'll work on that.
And then as far as events go, after a while, possibly helping others with classes or one-on-one, or what was your idea for that?
I was thinking more or less one-on-one. I could help with spiritual growth of individuals. Certain types of casters, I can help them grow in certain ways, although I will not teach necromancy or summoning for any reason. I don't want to teach the darker things, but I'm more than happy to teach some of the lighter energy manipulation things and help people grow in that aspect. I also would like to do, if I figured out how to do it quite, is plan a camping trip for people that maybe don't quite fully believe or understand in some of the energy stuff, and do certain things to help attune them naturally to what element they are and get them to at least feel energy, help them become slightly more empathic psychically so they can feel the universe itself and then know it's real.
So, have you started a meetup channel yet? A meetup site?
No, I have not.
So what I'm going to suggest is that we get you started up on Meetup, and that'll get you connected with a lot of the people in the local area that are looking specifically for you. So anybody that's watching, go ahead and shoot us an email if you're interested. Otherwise, you should be able to find Mark on Meetup very soon. So that's going to wrap it up for our episode 7. I think it was great. What do you think?
Little bit sporadic, but it all continued to the point. So I think we're doing well enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna do a little bit of video, get some videos going about your memories and things, and then we are going to jump on here again on Thursday.
I had a quick question. Do you think it's possible that you could put on my song Chewbacca to end us off?
Chewbacca?
From my YouTube. Do you think you could do that?
Let me see if I can get it. Hold on. Let me just take me off here. Hold on. Wow, what is that? That's beautiful.
Honestly, I'm not even sure what language that is anymore. I learned a lot of languages in some of the stuff I did, and I love being able to sing in older languages, or sometimes I'll just start belting out in Russian experiences I went through. I've actually had people translate some of the stuff, and they're like, "Mark, you talk about some very dark stuff in your operas."
I am going to share your videos, so we're going to sign off with your video. So hold on.
You took the mic off for you. Now you can hear it. You weren't able to hear it through Yeah, no, I just recorded something quick and easy. This is my band, Ice Cold Water. Me and my friend Chris. Chris on guitar, me singing. All right, then everyone have a wonderful evening.
All right, you can find that on Mark's YouTube channel, and I'll be putting that up in the link. Everyone have a great night.
Chewbacca!